Welcome back to Unmasking the Trans Movement with John Mueller. I'm your host, Brad Wilder. Today on the show, Kira Davis returns for part 2. We spoke with Kira last time. We went through quite a bit of information on that episode, and John's here to kind of give you a recap and set up part 2 today. John, great to have you here. Another busy afternoon with lots of different individuals that we're talking to here on the program. Kira is one of many, but Kira has a story that, is compelling, and obviously this second part of the show is going to talk not
Join Unmasking the Trans Movement with John Mueller, Sunday, April 23rd at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, as he hosts Unmasking the Trans Movement's next webinar, where we connect you with the clinical professionals who provide understanding on the many topics that make up this disturbing ideology and answer any questions you may have. Protecting the most vulnerable, women and children, Unmasking the Trans Movement. For more info on guests, dates, times, and pricing, see us online at unmaskingthetransmovement.com.
Podcast, Just Listen to Yourself. Part 1, we played a clip of that. Her podcast is great. I was listening to one of her episodes this morning. She has also written a book, and we're going to allow her to kind of give us the contents of that. But before we do that, she had mentioned something that is so pertinent because she ran for school board. Her concern because of her kids is for schools. She's from Southern California. I spent 20 years in Southern California. So to watch that state under the leadership of extreme radical policies and laws that are being pushed, especially with regard to the trans deception, which ultimately will allow predators to target kids. That is such a huge concern. Predators in the sense of financial and sexual predators. Kira, thank you for being back with us.
My pleasure. We had a great discussion last episode, and I'm looking forward to keeping the discussion going. There's just so much to talk about.
There's not enough time. We could be doing this for hours and hours, and we'll have you back if you're okay with that.
Of course, yeah.
Would you mention, because this is so pertinent to part of the reasons you wrote your book, you mentioned that your daughter has indicated to you she no longer feels safe in the girls' bathroom at school.
Yeah, here in California, we have a lot of transgender bathroom laws, which are now becoming more and more common across the United States. Genderless bathrooms, basically. Any student who identifies as another gender can use the opposite bathroom or locker room. And because I am the mother of a boy, and also because I'm a human being, and I've been around teenage boys off and on my whole life, I know that even outside of the idea of who identifies as what, teenage boys push boundaries, and they're dumb. And so
or they can also be, no, it's spot on. Okay, let's talk about that just for a second, because that's what needs to be understood. Because if teen boys, the average kid is accessing the internet or pornography, I think by age 10 it is. So if you have a young boy who's been scripted with pornography, people need to understand that kids or anybody, but males, once males get into deviance, they have no ethics. So they push boundaries, and they have no problem wanting to gain access to women in private spaces.
And they do take advantage of it. A lot of the boys around here use the girls' bathrooms because they're cleaner, or they'll use them because the teachers aren't going to go in there, so they'll go in there and vape. The teachers don't follow them in there. The teachers have been trained to stand back and not make judgments, so the teachers don't go in and check on them. I mean, and then we've also had cases where there have been boys who have gone in there to sexually assault girls, and they also, just on a more practical note, boys are gross, like they're dirty, so they dirty up.
It's true. It's true.
All of those things are. It's very. I was talking to my mom friends on a text thread just this week, like yesterday, and I was like, oh, my daughter is 15, and she says we were trying to drink more water, trying to be healthier. And she's like, I don't want to drink more water at school. I don't go to the bathroom at school. I hold it all day. I don't want to go. And I was texting my friends. I'm like, my daughter just said that. She's like, oh yeah, my daughter doesn't use the bathroom at school. Only time if she has to, she does it during class. So the hallways are empty, the bathrooms are going to be empty. When I was running for school board, I was getting all kinds of messages from parents, private messages, because they were scared. This fear and intimidation is being used in our public school system to thwart parents. And so they were saying, well, my daughter was followed into the bathroom by a boy, and he didn't end up doing anything, but he made her nervous, and she was on her period, and she needed some privacy to deal with that, because being a teenage girl and dealing with all of these bodily functions at school, it's challenging. And and so she went, her daughter went to the principal of this school. I'll identify the school. It's San Juan Hills High School. It's the same school that has that teacher that.
And as a matter of fact, if any administrator in that school district or the principal wants to come on this program, we're more than happy to have this discussion with them, because as what you're going to describe, my contention is this: they're placing the safety of kids, especially girls, at risk. And sexual assaults have gone up, and they are underreported. It's really easy to underreport, right? You sweep it under the carpet, but just like any college that has sex week, the facts are this: the sexual assaults go up on campus. Any school that allows this deviant sex ed stuff, the SOGI sex ed, sexual orientation, gender identity stuff to come on campus, you're going to have an increase of sexual assaults, but these kids are then pressured to not report.
Oh, I mean, 100% bang on. And I'm telling you one of dozens of stories that I got, and they were all the same. But this particular story, my mom friend said, my daughter went to the principal's office and she said, I understand what the law is in California. I understand that, our your daughter's been indoctrinated like everybody else. She wasn't even saying anything about LGBTQ youth. She was saying, is there a place I can go, a bathroom that I can use that's just private, so I can take care of my bodily needs? I'm not asking you to change the policy for the bathroom policy, but I was just traumatized. I felt scared and threatened. And the principal's response was, we can get you counseling.
Oh my gosh.
He offered her counseling. Now I have heard from dozens of parents, the same principal. This is his tactic. This is the school's tactic.
Well, we're going to invite him. We're going to invite him on our program.
Please do.
Yeah, I want to know his
have a little
name. What's his
discussion.
name?
He will not come. But
What's his
invite him.
name?
I can't remember his name.
It's okay, but a current, or we'll do the superintendent. San Juan?
Our superintendent got fired. We have no
Okay,
superintendent.
so anybody,
board-
as a matter of fact, this is an open and standing invitation to any school administrator, to any school board member, to any superintendent. You come on our program, we're going to have a little discussion with you about how you ensure the safety of your students. I want to know the numbers of sexual assaults. We'll do a Freedom of Information request. We're going to find out, are you reporting? I will then look into I'll contact the local police department. We'll find out how many reports have been made. We're going to start finding out who you really care about, your special interest, or do you care about the safety and health and welfare of these young girls?
They don't. They don't at all. And I'll tell you what, this school, once you get off this, you can look up the school. Fox News has been there. This was happening all through my time running for school board. I'm a member of the press myself, so I brought some attention with me when I was running for school board, which of course made the unions even more hot and heavy to make sure that I didn't get on the school board, which they succeeded in that. But our kids are not safe. Worse yet, the people that they go to for safety concerns are isolating them, telling them they're crazy, telling these girls, oh, you need counseling for your trauma.
It's gaslighting. They're gaslighting these kids.
And then what they're doing is they're asking the parents they're saying, well, just send her to the office. We'll talk to her. They don't want anything on record. They don't want to send emails. They'll have a phone call. The principal will call the parents. Oh, you know what? Little Sally, she's the only one that's been complaining about this. I know it's not true because I have an Instagram account that's got 40 messages from 40 different parents talking about the time that their daughter felt threatened in school, in the school bathroom by a boy, and was dismissed by the principal. They have a tactic to do this. They don't want to make it seem like it's a problem. The agenda drives education nowadays. And we are foregoing everything in the name of the sexualized agenda. It is a cult. It is a religion. And I think it's time, and I'll connect this to my book, since we're going to be talking about that anyway. This is why I talk about it in the book. I think it's time. Let me say this. I'm Black and I'm conservative, so I get a lot of messages from people who are white saying the race conversation is really hard. How do I have the race conversation without my progressive uncle or this person who's on the other side of the issues from me calling me a racist or calling me a bigot, or, I hate that I'm not those things, and it really hurts me. How do I have, and my answer is always the same. You can't. They're going to call you names. I'm afraid you just have to deal with it. And I'm afraid that there are too many people out there. I'm just as guilty as the next person. Too many people out there who are so concerned with how their neighbors are going to see them. If someone's going to think they're a bad person, like, this is go time. There's no more time to be concerned about how people look at you or perceive you, or if people are going to be mean to you. Like, that is the least of your concerns. It should be the least of your concerns. If I ask you guys, if I ask the two of you, would you die for your kids? What's the answer going to be?
100%.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, well, that's the easy part. Everybody would die for their kids. That is such a no-brainer. I'll take a bullet for my kid in 1 second. Would you lose your job for your kid? Would you risk your reputation for your kid? Would you give up your new car for your kid or all your amenities for your kid? Would you risk being ostracized from your social circles for your kid? Like, these are the questions we need to be asking. What are you willing to put on the line for your kid? Your life is the no-brainer. That's the easy part. It's all the other stuff that comes with life that we have learned to accept as necessities, and they're not. The Western comforts that we seek, the social acceptability. Most people find when you step out, there's a bunch of people who will step with you. They were just waiting for one person. So you're not in the minority, you're in the majority. What's in the minority is the people brave enough to take the first step. It's time.
And what's so beautiful, there's so much. We've just touched on, we opened up so many cans of worms here. But Kira, here's your book. The title is beautiful, and really that's what you're saying. It's time to stand up. What are we standing up for? We're saying enough is enough. We're drawing a line in the sand. We're saying that we are not going to allow people to reframe sex and sexuality in such a way that our kids are being groomed, we're being dumbed down, we can't spot predators anymore. This is the ultimate form of brainwashing. This is the ultimate form of mental and emotional manipulation. We are not against any group of people. We are for the protection of women and children, and especially in California, where women are being harmed because this agenda is shoving deviant men, allowing them, opening the doors for deviant men to gain access into prisons, where every one of these perpetrators is going to rape women. How do I know? I was on psych staff for 11 years. This is putting women and children in harm's way. It's eradicating women. It's erasing women sports. Why? Because it's toying. These guys are deviant. These guys are sexual deviants. Leah Thomas, we found that out. This is true. You look in the background of every single one of these sports deviants, and you're going to find the same kind of thing. They have a deep malevolence toward women because these men have been accessing the kind of porn that turns them malevolent. So they love to deny women. That's all that is. It's the preliminaries. But their real goal is accessing the private spaces of women because it traumatizes them and they get off on it. And that's what nobody wants to talk about. And
right.
That's why what you're saying is so important in this book.
The basic desire is the same. The basic idea of separating children from authority, separating children from moral authority, separating children from their parents, separating the human spirit from something larger, from a larger purpose. That's a tactic that has gone on since the beginning of time. These are all battles that have been fought in different ways. Now, we do have to be cognizant of how these ideas spread and how technology has changed the way those ideas spread, but the perversions have always been the same, and it's just a matter of who has access to it, how easily.
And Kira, let's now talk about, as you say, the battles. Right, we got to draw lines. Where there is a battle, or there's only battle once people draw lines. Mm-hmm. And what you're calling people to is, especially parents, but really all good people, to see the battle and say, whoa, enough is enough. Not on my watch. We draw the line here. This is your book. Talk to us about what caused you to write it, and then walk us through some of the chapters in some of the high points, especially dealing with the transgender movement, which is really an agenda.
Yeah, what pushed me to write this was during COVID, and I was a good little soldier here in California for the 15 days that they said to slow the spread. I did that. I didn't know what was going on with COVID, and I was scared. And then after 15 days, I'm like, wow, this is America. At some point, pretty soon here, everyone's going to get tired of this, and we're all going to go back to real life because this is ridiculous. We're being lied to. The bodies in the streets that I was promised, like, none of that's happening. Something is wrong. And then schools closed. My son lost his senior year of high school. Literally one day he was on, planning for his senior trip and prom, and the next day he was at home on Zoom, and then he lost the next year because his college didn't open. So 2 years of your life, for me at 48, almost 49, not a lot. My life's basically the same from age 48 to 50. But when you are 17 to 19, that's a lifetime. That is a lifetime. And to watch that be torn away from my children on anti-science stuff, it was crazy. And then I saw what was going on Zoom school, and I started realizing what was in the curriculum, and I'm like, what the heck is going on here? And I realized, I had been looking away, assuming that the process was doing what I thought it was supposed to do, and it was the opposite. And so one day after our governor extended the COVID emergency again, he kept doing that. I mean, he only released our COVID emergency last month. 3 years later, I thought to myself, what are we doing? Everyone's just taking this. Everyone is just saying, well, I guess I don't have any recourse. It's for the greater good. And I'm like, no, freedom is for the greater good. That's the greater good, is freedom.
If pretty boy Gavin Newsom is the best governor you guys got, you're in a lot of trouble.
We're melting. We're already in trouble. I mean, and there's just the thing is like, it might as well be Gavin. There's just another Gavin coming up behind him. There's no end to this. This could be another show, guys, about what's wrong with California. My point is this. I was looking around feeling like we're about to lose everything that is wonderful about this country. We are about to lose this culture war. And if we don't stand up and get serious about pushing back on some of this stuff, we're going to lose forever. So everyone pick a battle space, draw your line right there and say, I am not moving any further on this. For me, it was that the COVID insanity and then the transgender insanity, which I don't think coincidentally flourished during COVID, because now everybody was isolated and everyone was online. And suddenly we had this ability to make this very perverted thing seem more normal. And then it really got a foothold, and I thought, if good people don't stand up now, where does this go? And we still may lose. I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. I just know one day I looked at myself in the mirror and I said, I don't want to go to my deathbed thinking that I just rolled over and played nice to the end in hopes that bad people would leave me alone for long enough for me to live my life. What happens to my kids? What happens to their kids? When I go to my grave, I'll go to my grave knowing that I did everything I could for the right thing. And I'll have to be satisfied with that.
You
Good
and
for
I
you.
have a lot in common, Kira, a lot
Yeah,
in
we-
common. I
yes,
say
we-
those
My
words
kids don't really
relentlessly for the
appreciate it.
past 2 years. I've said that exact same statement over and over again. And I think I've
Yeah.
even said the words, I'll die on this hill before you'll take it from me.
I will die on this hill. I have said this too. The gender thing. My son called me a turf one day, and I was like, "What's a turf?" And he was like,
Oh.
"A trans radical feminist." And I'm like, "What's this mean?" First of all, I'm a conservative, so to use the word feminist, I'm like, I'm not a feminist.
Well, my daughter says, you're dead naming. Why do you dead name people, Dad? Dead name? What the hell's dead name mean? Right? Like,
He was like, I was like, I'm a feminist. I'm a feminist because I think girls are girls and boys are boys. I'm like, that's insane. I'm a realist. But even just last night, I had a conversation with my daughter. I posted a little something on my Instagram account for my podcast, Just Listen to Yourself. You can go find that. And I talked about Dylan Mulvaney, this kid who's getting all of these endorsements. And I'm like, look, if that kid came out and said, I'm doing 365 days of gay, society would freak out over his caricature of a gay man. Because it is such a caricature, it is such an act, they would be so offended by it. Or if he said, this is what a trans person is like. 365 days of being trans. If that's what he said and that's what he was doing, we would go, that is so offensive. Trans people are normal just like everybody else. They're not caricatures. But he's coming out and saying, I'm a girl. And so now we're just supposed to be like, oh, that insane characterization of girlhood is normal? I'm like, absolutely not. So my daughter saw it and she was like, why do you care? Why do you care what he does? And I'm like, I don't care what he does. Here is the thing. I don't care what he does, and I don't even care how he makes his money. I do care that he and everybody else is asking me to believe a lie. The truth matters. And if someone can make you believe that there are 5 lights when there are 4 lights, they can make you believe anything. The truth will always matter. And if you don't stand for the truth in the small things, right? The things of, hey, I'm not going to call this guy a she when he's a he. If you don't stand for the truth in the small things, you will just keep getting moved over and pushed back. We have no more yardage behind us to give in this cultural battle. You cannot afford to be pushed back anymore. So no, even if it makes my daughter think of me as old-fashioned, overly conservative, way too concerned, or a turf, or whatever. Remember I said, are you willing to die for your kids? Are you willing to take on your kids' wrath? My kids don't always appreciate what I'm doing. But guess what? I'm the grown-up. I'm the adult. So they don't have to appreciate what I'm doing, and they don't have to understand what I'm doing. They will, just like you and I understood our parents a lot better when we got older, right? They will too. But I'm in charge. They're not in charge. So I'm not taking advice from them.
There you go. We are going to, of course, have to have you back. Kira, for those that are curious, and we just have a couple of minutes, would you review kind of the contents or the high points of your book?
Yeah, it's drawing lines, and it's really easy read. I didn't write it as a, some kind of academic exercise. It's a book of ideas. It's just simplifying ideas. But I have, I've outlined some of the major issues that I think are important to get involved in these days. Women's rights and the transgender movement. I put that right at the top because for me that's most important. But I think everything falls under it. At some point, school choice is a big issue for me. I'm a huge school choice advocate. And I think one of the keys to rolling back the transgender movement is to wrestle back public school. So I think that's important. Cancel culture, why cancel culture has been used as a tactic of intimidation to get you to be quiet. I mean, John, the episode that you were listening to on my podcast, 2 episodes before that, I had just brought up the subject briefly and I lost my biggest sponsor because of it. So
okay, would you, and remind people, because it was wonderful, remind people of the name of your podcast and the episode.
Just Listen to Yourself with Kira Davis. I think the episode you were listening to was how much freedom should teachers have when it comes to sexual content in the classroom? What kind of conversations can your teachers?
And you just lost one of your major sponsors?
Yeah.
See, we're just not supposed to talk about any of this. Allow
Not
people to
supposed
come in and unduly influence our kids so that predators have a heyday: financial, medical, big pharma, and sexual
Everything.
predators.
Yep. Yep. And when they were doing it during COVID, right? Why? For the pharmaceutical companies, right? You can't talk about preventative measures for COVID. We were getting canceled for talking about just different medicines for COVID. People were getting deplatformed for saying go outside and take a walk in the sun, because we were funneling all of this. We were going all in on big pharma. So another chapter is corporate oppression, how corporations use their products and their money to influence political conversations. So rewriting history, how we're erasing history and erecting it in our own image, and how that's changing how we look at our nation. Big tech, big media, CRT is a big thing I talk about. That's really hard to talk about because it's actually a really complicated thing, which is another tactic, right? They make it very complicated and then they insult you when you can't talk about it academically. So I break it down. I give you issues that you can look up to understand it better, civil rights and COVID. But one thing I do in this book that's really important, I didn't write it just to scold you about all the places that you could be making a difference and you're not making a difference. I give you practical advice at the end of every chapter, what you can do to get involved right where you are. And the one thing I tell people is my fight might not be your fight. I'm a huge school choice advocate. I spend a lot of my time and energy advocating for choice, for educational choice. That might not be what, lights your fire. Maybe you just are more into the rights of small farmers or small business owners. Maybe you're like John and your expertise are leading you into this area of gender rights and gender sanity. Maybe you do want to run for office, but maybe you just want to be the retired grandparent who goes to the school library and looks at what books are in there and just lets the parents know, oh, I looked at the books in here and here's a book you might want to, write your principal about. Everybody has a place to get in, but it is no longer acceptable for you to sit down and be silent. Silence is killing us. Everybody's going to have to get uncomfortable. And you can get uncomfortable in a big way, which I did running for school board. It was a huge sacrifice for me and my family. But maybe that's not for you. You can get involved in small ways. Every battlefield counts. Don't let anyone tell you that here's where you should be focusing, not there. I hate it when people say that, oh, you're being distracted from this. No, there's many fronts to this one war. So let people go where they fit in. Get in where you fit in, but get in somewhere. We have no more time on this.
And these teachers, they think they can communicate to the classroom in general. And I want to make sure that some parents out there understand. I ran into a teacher at the supermarket recently, and it just so happened to be the drama teacher that approached my daughter in school and tried to coerce her into, joining the LGBTQII plus blah 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 club after school, and who her girlfriend was, and if she wasn't if this girl that my daughter was friends with wasn't her girlfriend, that the teacher would be her bestie and we'll be friends and all this bullshit. I confronted that teacher at the supermarket. I spoke very loudly that day. I made sure everybody around me heard. If you can say that to a class of kids that are young like that, you're going to have to tolerate me at a supermarket or anywhere else I see you, at the mall, at the local hockey arena. I'm going to make sure parents understand what kind of a person you really are and what kind of influence you think you have over my kids or anyone else's kids. So with that, I think we've kind of come to the end of this show, John, and I'll throw it back to you to kind of wrap things up for us.
Well, Kara Davis, thank you so much. What we're saying is parents can no longer afford to not be involved, not be engaged. Kara Davis, you've done a wonderful job motivating us today. And we will have you back because this is so important. You ran for school board. I strongly recommend that all parents, good parents, because others that have ill intentions for our kids, they're running.
There is lots more to come here on Unmasking the Trans Movement with John Euler. I'm your host, Brad Wilder. Remember, it's not our kids' fight, it's our fight. You can find us at unmaskingthetransmovement.com. You can also find us on our BitChute channel, where all of our episodes are posted there too. I'll see you next time.